Good afternoon. Thank you for listening to me again. And first, for a disclaimer, this executive guide on digital preservation is really the work of Robert Buckley, who is our chair of the policy working group of UNESCO PERSIST, and of course, our very good partner, Digital Preservation Coalition, Sarah Middleton. I'm honored to be here to present on this. It is actually released fresh from the oven, released only in May 2019. And I hope this will give some suggestions to national committees and people, memory institutions who are working in this area. First, for the background, the development. It is a community-developed and community-owned guide. And the statements which are in these executive guide, they are contributed by voluntary members of the Digital Preservation Coalition. And this is supported by PERSIST project of the UNESCO Memory of the World program. So PERSIST assisted in dissemination and in, hopefully, translation through our ability to connect with people over here in the different regions. So this slide is the proud product of Sarah Middleton and Sharon McMicken. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. It is a slide that sort of sums it all up, what is in the executive guide. On the left-hand side, you have the advocacy, which is done by Digital Preservation Coalition. And on the right-hand side is really the involvement of UNESCO committees, PERSIST, in promoting and raising awareness to, and we hope through the guide, to a wide variety of users, ranging from archives, libraries, museums, to businesses, as well as research and higher education institutions, and perhaps everyone. So what this guide serves is to allow users in the bottom half of the group to engage, to be able to talk to and motivate senior managers and executives to support digital preservation. Because the senior executives, they will need to know what digital preservation is, what are the risks involved, and what are the consequences and as well as the opportunities for digital preservation. So that's where the executive guide comes in. So now for the details. So what do you need for digital preservation? An enabling policy and regulatory environment. I think what I would like to draw in this case is really the importance of financial and human resources to support digital preservation. And of course, supporting legislation. For example, in the case of Singapore, we have updated our act to allow the National Library Board to collect born digital publications, as well as to do web archiving without going for volunteering efforts. UNESCO recommendation, familiar to all, you've seen it this morning. What I would like you to draw your attention to is really at the bottom, the sample statement, that says that member states are urged to consider their documentary heritage as an invaluable asset and to apply this perspective in their national legislation. So this actually ties in what the executive guide or the policy working group is doing, ties in with this intention of the UNESCO recommendation. So now for the details, where does the executive guide fits? It provides practitioners with a generic set of, a combination of generic and specific messages to talk to senior executives, to communicate, so that they understand the value of digital preservation and to appreciate that it could be at the core of every organization. So practitioners, we refer to people who plan, implement, and manage digital preservation in memory and heritage institutions. Not just that, in government bodies and not-for-profit organizations. It could be applicable to commercial and financial organizations such as the banking sector, and perhaps someday to all organizations. The key thing I would like to point out is the guide recognizes that every organization is different. We have different priorities, different risk factors, different motivation. So a user in the memory institution, in the heritage institution, in government bodies, could select statements from the guide and tailor them to the person you are communicating digital preservation to. Oops. So they are organized by organization type, ranging from archives, businesses, higher education and research institutions, libraries, museums, and galleries. And there's also a section for all. When you are not sure where you fall under, you can look at all. It has organization-specific statements. For example, digital preservation may mean slightly different things to different communities. So look at the community that you belong to, and there are suggestions on how you communicate digital preservation to the group. Likewise, organizational motivators may vary too. So that's how you use, for an example, in terms of this is pulled out from the organization type archives. So on the right-hand side, you have the key motivators. On the left-hand side, the risks. So depending on how you want to communicate, if, for example, you do not have executive level support for digital preservation, and that is not persistent, it's one-off, like what we heard from Latin America. So then the key motivators for senior executives are in terms of accountability, business continuity, corporate or cultural memory. So you pick the different motivators and they will describe how you could communicate some of these items. So the motivators are topics or issues that are particularly relevant and important to senior executives. So this is the area where we would like people to look at if you're communicating to senior executives. So each of the risks and opportunities identified within the executive guide, they have been associated. You can search them through motivators. You can also search them through the risks, the kind of risk that you know is happening in your organization. More about information that you can pull out from the executive guide based on the organizational type archives. So what can digital preservation mean to a senior executive who thinks that accountability is important? So it contributes towards accountability of the government. If they feel that senior executive thinks that corporate and cultural memory is important, then you present digital preservation can make available a dynamic, powerful information asset. So the messaging varies depending on whom you are engaging and communicating with. And even the definition of digital preservation, there are various versions on the executive guide to let you customize the messages. So these are, based on our research, the typical organizational motivators of senior executives. They are concerned about accountability. They are concerned about corporate memory, their reputation. They are concerned about security. They are concerned about loss. So how to use it? You create and deliver the message about digital preservation in the most relevant and appropriate format for your organization. So some of these statements may be applicable to more than one organizational type. So look through them. If you can't find a specific statement that's relevant, look through it under all organizations. I'd like to highlight that, like many of the guidelines that we have developed, there's flexibility. It is only one way of communicating the importance of risks and opportunities and needs associated with digital preservation. And the beauty of it is you customize it based on your needs. You talk to people based on what you know the ground is, so that your messaging is engaging. You engage them. So as professionals, sometimes we tend to just talk in a language that only we understand. So we need to talk their languages. So we also welcome, this is not all, we welcome updates and contributions by other people who has possibly different settings from what we have gathered in this particular guide, so that it can be updated and be more relevant to a larger community. So these are some sample scenarios. You can find the same information on the Digital Preservation Coalition website. So you're invited to generate and contribute your own scenarios if you can't find it here. So everyone is different. Every organization is different. What's next? Yes, we would like to gather feedback. If you have used it, you will find whether it works, it does not work. Give us some feedback. We'd like to know how we can tailor it such that it is more useful for the international community. We hope to update this progress at the upcoming International Council on Archives at Abu Dhabi in 2020. And then users, we will invite everyone here to try and generate and contribute your scenarios, as well as to tell us what would work better for different settings and different regions. Because whatever is developed is based on the volunteer efforts, perhaps largely European focus, but we can certainly extend it beyond that. And of course, like what Ingrid says, translation in other languages. Hopefully we can find volunteers for Spanish. Okay, I think French and Arabic, there are volunteers, Spanish and other languages, so that we can expand the reach and awareness on this issue. That's all I have. Thank you.